Nestled deep in the misty woods, far from prying eyes, stood the Saint Helena Orphanage. Built in the late 1800s, it had long been a refuge for abandoned and orphaned children. But beneath its welcoming facade, the orphanage held a dark and terrible secret, one that would soon come to light in the most horrific way. The children at St. Helena knew better than to wander the halls at night. Strange noises echoed through the corridors, footsteps, whispers, and sometimes even faint, mournful cries. They told stories of the Shadow Man, a figure who supposedly roamed the orphanage after dark, searching for his next victim. The older children shared these tales with the younger ones, their eyes wide with a mix of fear and thrill. One cold October night, a new arrival, a boy named Tommy, lay awake in his bed, unable to sleep. He had been at the orphanage for only a week, and the sense of dread that filled the place had not yet settled into a routine fear. The stories of the Shadow Man had especially haunted his thoughts. Determined to prove to himself that it was just a story, Tommy decided to venture out into the hallway. As he crept past the other sleeping children, the floorboards creaked under his weight. The corridor was dimly lit by the moonlight filtering through the dusty windows. Tommy's heart pounded in his chest as he moved forward, each step echoing loudly in the silence. Halfway down the hall, Tommy heard a soft whispering sound. He froze, straining to listen. The whispers seemed to be coming from the direction of the old, unused wing of the orphanage. His curiosity piqued. Tommy followed the sound, his fear momentarily forgotten. The whispers led him to a heavy wooden door at the end of the corridor. It was slightly ajar, and through the crack, Tommy could see a faint flickering light. Pushing the door open, he stepped inside. The room beyond was cold and damp, filled with old furniture covered in white sheets. In the center of the room stood an old-fashioned oil lamp, its flame dancing eerily. Tommy approached the lamp, his eyes scanning the room for any sign of movement. As he reached out to touch the lamp, a sudden chill ran down his spine. He spun around, expecting to see the Shadow Man, but the room was empty. He let out a shaky breath, trying to calm his nerves. Just then he heard the whispers again, clearer this time. They seemed to be coming from beneath the floorboards. Tommy knelt down and pressed his ear to the ground. The voices were faint but distinct, like a chorus of lost souls calling out for help. Driven by a mixture of fear and curiosity, Tommy began to pry up the floorboards. They came away easily, revealing a dark, narrow passage beneath. Without thinking, he climbed down into the darkness, the whispers growing louder and more urgent. The passage led to a hidden basement, its walls lined with old, crumbling bricks. The air was damp and musty, and the only light came from the flickering lamp above. Tommy moved cautiously through the basement, his eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of danger. At the far end of the basement, he found a small iron door. It was rusted and covered in cobwebs, but it opened easily when he pushed it. Beyond the door was a small chamber, its walls covered in strange, arcane symbols. In the center of the chamber was a large wooden chest, its lid slightly ajar. Tommy approached the chest, his heart pounding in his chest. He reached out and lifted the lid, revealing its contents. Inside were old, tattered clothes, each one stained with dark, dried blood. But it was what lay beneath the clothes that made Tommy's blood run cold. At the bottom of the chest was a collection of old, yellowed photographs. Each one showed a different child, their faces filled with fear and desperation. Tommy recognized some of them. They were children who had disappeared from the orphanage over the years, their fates unknown. As he stared at the photographs, a sense of dread washed over him. He realized with horror that the stories of the Shadow Man were true. He had been taking children from the orphanage for years, hiding their bodies in this secret chamber. Suddenly, the whispers stopped. The basement was plunged into an eerie silence, broken only by the sound of Tommy's ragged breathing. He turned to leave, but as he did, he saw a figure standing in the doorway. The Shadow Man was tall and gaunt, his face hidden beneath a hood. His eyes glowed with a sinister light, and a cruel smile played on his lips. Tommy backed away, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew he had to escape, but the Shadow Man moved with inhuman speed, blocking his path. "Welcome, Tommy," the Shadow Man said, his voice a chilling whisper. "I've been waiting for you." Tommy turned and ran, his footsteps echoing through the dark passage. He could hear the Shadow Man's footsteps behind him, growing closer with each passing second. He scrambled up the ladder, his hands shaking with fear. As he reached the top, he felt a cold hand wrap around his ankle, pulling him back down. He kicked out, desperate to escape, but the Shadow Man's grip was too strong. He was dragged back into the darkness, his screams echoing through the empty halls of Saint Helena. The next morning, the orphanage was filled with a sense of dread. Tommy's bed was empty, his belongings untouched. The children whispered among themselves, their eyes filled with fear. The older ones knew what had happened, but they dared not speak of it. The staff searched the orphanage from top to bottom, but there was no sign of Tommy. His disappearance was just one more mystery added to the dark history of Saint Helena. The whispers of the Shadow Man grew louder, and the children knew that he would strike again. As the days turned into weeks, the orphanage fell into a state of despair. The once bright and cheerful place was now shrouded in darkness, the air thick with fear. The children knew that as long as the Shadow Man roamed the halls, they were never truly safe. And so the legend of the Shadow Man continued to haunt the Saint Helena orphanage, a reminder of the darkness that lurked just beneath the surface. The children huddled together at night, their eyes wide with fear, knowing that at any moment, the Shadow Man could come for them. But there was one child who refused to live in fear. Her name was Emily, and she was determined to put an end to the Shadow Man's reign of terror. She spent her days researching the history of the orphanage, searching for clues that might lead her to the truth. One night, she gathered a group of the bravest children and led them down into the basement. They pried up the floorboards and climbed down into the hidden passage. With trembling hands, they opened the iron door and stepped into the secret chamber. Emily approached the chest, her heart pounding in her chest. She lifted the lid and stared at the photographs inside. "These children deserve justice," she said, her voice filled with determination. The other children nodded, their fear replaced by a sense of purpose. Together they vowed to uncover the truth and put an end to the Shadow Man's reign of terror. They knew it would be dangerous, but they were determined to succeed. As they left the chamber, they heard the whispers again, louder and more urgent than ever before. The Shadow Man was watching, but they refused to be afraid. They knew that as long as they stood together, they could overcome any obstacle. And so the children of Saint Helena embarked on a journey to uncover the truth and put an end to the darkness that had haunted their home for so long. They knew it would be a long and difficult journey, but they were determined to succeed. For they were no longer victims of the Shadow Man. They were survivors, and they would not rest until justice was served. The children of Saint Helena, led by the fearless Emily, were now bound by a common goal: to end the reign of the Shadow Man and uncover the secrets of their haunted orphanage. Their resolve was unshakable, and their unity gave them strength. They knew they had to tread carefully, for the Shadow Man was always watching, lurking in the darkness. Emily had a plan. She knew they needed to gather more information about the Shadow Man and the history of the orphanage. They started with the library, a dusty, forgotten room filled with old books and records. The children spent hours combing through the pages, searching for any clue that could help them. One evening, Emily found an old, leather-bound journal hidden behind a stack of books. The cover was worn, and the pages yellowed with age. It belonged to Father Matthias, the founder of Saint Helena Orphanage. As she read through the journal, a chilling story began to unfold. Father Matthias had been a kind and generous man, dedicated to helping the children in his care. But as the years went by, he became increasingly obsessed with dark rituals and forbidden knowledge. He believed that by performing certain rites, he could summon a powerful spirit to protect the orphanage and ensure its prosperity. Desperation drove Father Matthias to perform a ritual he had discovered in an ancient, forbidden text. It required a blood sacrifice, innocent lives offered to bind the spirit to the orphanage. He chose the children, believing their purity would make the ritual more potent. The Shadow Man was born from this dark act, a malevolent entity bound to the orphanage, feeding on the fear and suffering of the children. Emily's hands trembled as she closed the journal. "We have to stop him," she whispered, her voice filled with determination. "We have to find a way to break the curse and free the orphanage from the Shadow Man." The other children gathered around, their faces pale but resolute. They knew the task ahead would be dangerous, but they were willing to face it together. They decided to confront the Shadow Man in his lair, the hidden chamber beneath the orphanage. That night they armed themselves with whatever they could find, old candlesticks, kitchen knives, and sturdy pieces of wood. They crept through the silent halls, their hearts pounding in their chests. The shadows seemed to shift and writhe around them, as if aware of their presence. As they reached the basement, the whispers grew louder, echoing through the dark passage. They entered the secret chamber, their eyes scanning the room for any sign of the Shadow Man. The air was thick with a sense of impending doom, but they pressed on, determined to see their mission through. In the center of the chamber stood the chest, its lid still ajar. Emily approached it, her hand shaking as she lifted the photographs. "We won't let him hurt anyone else," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. Suddenly, the whispers stopped. The room was plunged into an eerie silence, broken only by the sound of their ragged breathing. The temperature dropped, and a chilling breeze swept through the chamber. The children huddled together, their eyes wide with fear. From the shadows, the Shadow Man emerged, his eyes glowing with a sinister light. He moved with inhuman grace, his smile twisted with malevolent delight. "You should not have come here," he hissed, his voice a chilling whisper. Emily stepped forward, her eyes locked onto the Shadow Man. "We're not afraid of you," she said, her voice filled with defiance. "We're here to end this." The Shadow Man laughed, a sound that sent shivers down their spines. "You think you can defeat me? I am bound to this place, born from its darkness. You are mere children, powerless against me." But Emily stood her ground, her courage unwavering. "We are stronger than you think," she said. "We have each other, and we won't let you harm anyone else." The Shadow Man's smile faded, replaced by a look of rage. He lunged at them, but the children stood firm, their makeshift weapons raised. They fought with all their might, their determination giving them strength. As the battle raged on, Emily remembered something she had read in Father Matthias's journal. The only way to break the curse was to destroy the source of the Shadow Man's power, the ancient forbidden text that had given birth to him. "Keep him distracted," Emily shouted to the others as she raced towards the chest. She rummaged through the contents, her hands shaking with urgency. At the bottom, she found the book, a tattered, leather-bound tome covered in strange symbols. The Shadow Man sensed what she was doing and let out a furious roar. He tried to reach her, but the other children blocked his path, their bravery unwavering. Emily tore the book from the chest and held it up. "This is the end for you," she said, her voice filled with determination. With all her strength, she threw the book into the flickering flame of the oil lamp. The fire caught the dry pages instantly, and the book began to burn. The Shadow Man let out a piercing scream, his form writhing in agony as the flames consumed his source of power. The chamber was filled with a blinding light as the curse was broken. The Shadow Man's form disintegrated, his screams fading into the ether. The oppressive darkness lifted, replaced by a sense of peace and relief. The children stood in silence, their eyes wide with disbelief. They had done it. They had defeated the Shadow Man and freed the orphanage from his grip. Emily felt a sense of pride and accomplishment, knowing that they had overcome the darkness together. In the days that followed, the atmosphere at Saint Helena began to change. The orphanage, once shrouded in fear, now felt lighter and more welcoming. The children no longer whispered about the Shadow Man, and the staff noticed a newfound sense of hope and happiness among them. Emily and her friends continued to explore the orphanage, uncovering its hidden secrets and preserving its history. They knew that the memory of the Shadow Man would never truly fade, but they were determined to honor the children who had suffered and ensure that their stories were never forgotten. And so, the legend of the Shadow Man became a tale of bravery and resilience, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope and courage could prevail. The children of Saint Helena had faced their fears and emerged victorious, their bond stronger than ever. Years later, Emily would go on to write a book about their experiences, sharing the story of the Shadow Man and the brave children who defeated him. The book became a beacon of hope for others, inspiring them to face their own fears and fight for a better future. Saint Helena Orphanage continued to be a safe haven for children in need, its halls now filled with laughter and joy. And though the shadows still lingered, they were no longer a source of fear, but a testament to the strength and courage of those who had overcome them.